possibility of snow. Dr. Tom Osborne, his club 6-0. A whole lot of folks have made it from Lincoln. And our Greg Bell is down on the field in rain gear. Greg?
Kansas comes into tonight's outing with one major focus, that being to shut down the quarterback and the fullback in the option Nebraska running game. If they do that, they leave the game in the hands of their I-back, the most coveted position on the Nebraska football team. This year's I-back, Amon Green, is 6th in the nation right now, and barring any injuries, could finish #2 on the career list. And guys, as a former running back, I can tell you one thing: we love it when we control the outcome of the game.
Well, we'll see plenty of Amon Green, and Greg, stay dry. Greg has a tough assignment tonight.
Yeah, just tell him to hold on to the football, though, because that's one of the things that's going to influence this football game, is who can hold on to the football in this wet weather.
And Terry Allen knows his club, if they're to pull off the major league upset, cannot turn it over. And in his initial season at Kansas, they've done a good job here at Memorial Stadium. As we mentioned in the open, they're 4-0. Nebraska wants the football. Joe Garcia to kick it deep. And this will be Shevin Wiggins from the goal line. And he gets to the 30-yard line. So a good starting spot for the University of Nebraska. Their quarterback is senior Scott Frost, and he has quietly put together an outstanding senior year. He is dangerous in the throw game. He is dangerous in the running game, obviously. Scott Frost, 524 yards rushing, 6 yards a crack. That's the 3rd most productive rushing quarterback in college football.
And Drew, he's playing as good as any quarterback in the country right now, especially running this offense.
They give to Makovica, the fullback, and he picks up about 3, maybe 4 yards before he was spilled by Jeremy Hannock. So it'll be 2nd down and 7. Scott Frost, 6'3" and 220. We visited shortly with him yesterday at their walkthrough. He is a big, strong guy.
Hey, he looks like a linebacker. In some schools right now, this guy would be playing linebacker for him. He's a heck of an athlete that can do a lot of things, and he's very hard to tackle, as we're going to see tonight.
Tight end comes to the near side. Toss sweep. This is Amon Green. He has the corner. And Green run out of bounds shy of midfield at the 49-yard line. Tony Blevins knocked him out. Let's take a look at the starters, brought to you by Southwest Airlines for Nebraska. Joel Makovica averaging more than 7 yards a carry. He's been sensational this year. He had a touchdown catch last week, and the big fellows up front. Daniska got in the end zone last week. John, the senior from East High School in Lincoln, fell on an Amon Green fumble in the end zone for a touchdown. First lineman to get in the end zone for Nebraska since the Fumblerooski and Dean Steinkuhler back in the early 80s. Amon Green picks up a couple of yards to the 48-yard line of Kansas. Brett McGraw made the play defensively for the Jayhawks. They'll play an odd front, at least to begin. Brett McGraw, Dewey Houston the third, Deion Johnson up front. The linebackers, Patrick Brown has had an outstanding year, 2 interceptions, also 4 fumble recoveries. Jeremy Hannock gets the start for Ron Warner. More on him in a moment. 2 safeties are terrific, Tony Blevins and Maurice Gaddy. The strength of this defense is in their secondary.
You're looking at Scott Frost here. He's calling an audible at the line of scrimmage.
Green sweeping, and he is brought down by Jason Thorin, and it'll be just shy of a first down. Now, Kansas had 3 players suspended last week following the Colorado football game. Ron Warner, Jamie Harris, and J.J. Johnson, 3 starters, 2 linebackers, and a cornerback. Had nothing to do with missing class or anything like that. It was just how they handled themselves after the ball game, the loss to Colorado.
Right, it was a violation of team conduct, and Terry Allen didn't want to do it, but you have to do it. You've got to lay down the law, not for the immediate part of the program, but for the future of the program. He's got to establish that he's the boss.
3rd down and a yard for Amon Green. Nowhere to run. Green now reverses field, and there's plenty of room. Green will have the first down to the 31-yard line. Jason Harris Not related to Jamie Harris. The left corner brought him down. Kansas did a good job initially.
You know, it's amazing. You tell running backs to run hard, put your head down, and try to make that extra yard. But that time, Amon Green starts to his left. He shows great patience. There's nowhere to go. There's a bunch of blue shirts there. So he very calmly just turns around, goes the opposite way, and makes a big play, and obviously a first down. That's all patience.
Give it to Makovica, and he pounds straight ahead for about a yard or two. Dewey Houston, the third, brought him down. Just a little bit more on the suspension of the three players. And Ron Warner is an all Big 12 candidate. In fact, he leads the nation in sacks at 10.5. Coach Allen said he would welcome those three players back tomorrow afternoon with open arms. Everything's forgotten about, and they move ahead.
Well, it's a suspension for a week in one game, and that's exactly what you have to do. You have to forget about it on Sunday and get on with the next game.
2nd down and 7. Amon Green runs into Brett McGraw after a couple, and this will set up 3rd down and 5 for Nebraska. Opening possession of the football game with Artie Gigantino and Greg Bell. I'm Drew Goodman. 4.5 minutes in from Lawrence, Kansas.
You know, Drew, Nebraska this year is an unbelievable 45 out of 88 on 3rd down conversions. That's over 50%. They're as good as they are in the country at converting 3rd down opportunities.
3rd and a short 5. Tim Carpenter, the tight end, to the near side, and now whistles. And Nebraska didn't see a flag thrown in their direction once last week in their 29-0 shutout at Texas Tech. That's amazing.
Well, it looked like 73, the left tackle, Paul Pollock, moved that time, which, like you said, is very, very unusual for this team. Nebraska, Drew, is one of the few teams in the country that have officials at every practice. And what they do, they officiated practice. And you're going to see the big fella right here move a little bit. He just jumps, and obviously it wasn't the crowd noise. He just didn't know the snap down.
On the first unit up front, the pipeline, the offensive line, that's what they call it at Nebraska, just their 3rd penalty all year. Frost with time, finds a man at the 17, 18-yard line, enough for a first down. Harris wrapped up Lance Brown. But they'll move the chains again for the Huskers.
You know, what people don't know about Scott Frost, he's got big numbers running the football, but he spent 2 years at Stanford. He knows how to throw the football also. Great patience again in the pocket, and he puts the ball right on the money.
Good delivery on a windy, wet turf at Memorial Stadium in Lawrence. 8th oldest stadium in the country. Here's Frost on the option. He still wanted to pitch it downfield, and he was wrapped up by Manolito Jones, who is starting for Jamie Harris after picking up 3 or 4 yards.
One of the things the Kansas coaches talked about was making Scott Frost hand the ball off to the fullback or pitch the ball. They did not want this man, who has rushed for 7 touchdowns this year so far, to beat them tonight, which sounds crazy that you want the ball in Green's hands, but that's part of the deal. You got to take the quarterback out of the option game, especially when you're playing Nebraska.
You know what that's called, Artie? Pick your poison.
You better believe it.
Straight ahead, Amon Green. A little of this, a little of that, and he gets it very close to another first down. Maurice Gaddy, the strong safety, will get credit for the tackle, and they're playing the strong safety, Gaddy, up close to the line of scrimmage.
Well, what they want to do, they want to get an 8-man front, and by moving Gaddy up, you're getting 8 guys around the line of scrimmage, but they're putting a lot of pressure on the other safety, Tony Blevins, because he's got to sit in the middle and run to the alley and go to the pitch man. But that guy, Gaddy, has got to make a lot of plays tonight, and I think he will, because he's a good football player.
3rd down and a yard. Frost changing the play. Green, first down at the 5-yard line. 1st and goal, Nebraska. Tony Blevins, the free safety, had to make the tackle.
You know, Drew, we were talking to the defensive coaches yesterday of Kansas, and we said, well, what does Nebraska do on 3rd and short? And he said, we don't know, because they're never in 3rd and short situations. And obviously that time it was just a handoff on an isolation inside. But when it's 3rd and short, you can expect the Nebraska people to give the ball to their money guy, which is the I-back.
12th play of the opening drive. Amon Green already has 7 carries. Makovica toward the end zone. Touchdown, Nebraska. And by the reaction of the crowd, you would think perhaps you were in Lincoln. There may be more fans of Nebraska here in Lawrence tonight than Kansas.
But what gets it done on the goal line is that big honker offensive line of Nebraska. They got a bunch of, quote, short, stubby guys. Milt Tennefer, the offensive line coach, calls them a bunch of stubby guys that like to hit you. And that's exactly what they are. But being short and stubby, they get great leverage on you.
Chris Brown adds the extra point. A typical Nebraska drive. They took nearly 6 minutes of the clock, 5:45 to be exact, and they do it in 12 plays, with the exception of 1 pass, everything on the ground. 4th rushing touchdown of the year for Joel Makovica, the junior from Brainerd, Nebraska.
You know, he was a walk-on, and he's a guy that has really blossomed in this Nebraska program. And they obviously love walk-ons here, but you're going to see just a simple handoff. But Makovica has not lost a yard all year, Drew. He's a powerful guy. You and I were standing next to him yesterday at practice. He is a short, stocky guy. He's about 5'10", but he is awful powerful. He reminds me a little bit of Tom Rathman, a guy that used to play here at Nebraska and is now, or used to play at the 49ers, now coaches for the 49ers. But that guy right there is a determined, tough guy, period.
Well, he and Scott Frost had a funny moment last week. Scott Frost was quoted after the game as saying he's not bad for a short guy. He was referencing the fact that Makovica had to reach up high and make a catch in the end zone last week. His first reception of the year, first touchdown of the year as a receiver. And Makovica didn't like that Scott Frost called him short.
Well, you know, little guys, and you should know this, you know, don't like to be called short. And, you know, I'll never do that to you on air here, but, you know, Scott Frost can do that to Makovica, and it was all in good fun.
Well, I'll remind you, you weren't the tallest linebacker to ever play the game. Kansas with their first touch of the game. It's David Winbush, and he scrambles to the 20-yard line. Ted Retzlaff made the tackle on special teams. There is Zach Wegner. Now, Wegner is a sophomore, and he took over the starting job 3 weeks ago when Matt Johnner went down with an injury. But if you talk to Terry Allen, this is the guy they want at quarterback. They believe that he will be a very good player. He stands tall in the pocket.
He's 6'2", he's 230, and they really think he can throw the football down the field, which is what they want to do here at Kansas in the next 3 years.
3-step drop. They run a fade, and it is knocked away, trying to get it to Eric Patterson. Pretty tight coverage by Ralph Brown. Not a guy you really want to pick on. Let's take a look at the rest of the Southwest Airlines starters tonight. Eric Patterson, they need to get him the football, and they also want to get Termaine Fulton when he comes into the game the football. 2 guys with better speed. Up front, Michael Lees has been the most consistent of an offensive line that has struggled for a good portion of this year. 2nd down and 10. Derek Van for about 3. Nebraska defensively, they had to replace 8 starters coming into the fall. You wouldn't know it by their performance this year. Steve Warren, by the way, gets the start at defensive tackle for Jason Wiltz. He was suspended for 1 game for missing class by Tom Osborne. The linebackers, not large, but boy are they quick, especially Octavius McFarland. He's just 200 pounds. He's a senior. Young secondary. Ralph Brown's a sophomore on 1 corner. And we have all sorts of movement up front. Jason Peter blew into the backfield. We'll see which way it goes.
The foul. Dead ball. Ball start. Back the offense. 5-yard penalty. Replay 2nd down.
Well, that was very nice of John Lewis, the referee, to say replay 2nd down, but it's actually 3rd down.
Right, and it looked like Nebraska moved, but I guess they didn't. And you know what happens a little bit, that offensive line from Kansas is very young and a little bit nervous against this great rushing defensive front from Nebraska.
They need the 30-yard line, 3rd down and 13. Gardner has it knocked down, incomplete. And Kansas will go 3 and out. Time for a Dr. Pepper game break. We head west to Kevin Frazier. Kevin?
Drew, wildest game of the day in Stillwater. Unbeaten Oklahoma State and Mizzou in double overtime. Cowboys go for 2 with a gimmick, but nobody's fooled. Tigers pull off the big upset. Hey, Drew, that's 2 big wins in a row for Larry Smith and crew.
101 points, Kevin. Unbelievable. The Cowboys go down for the first time, and Larry Smith has things turned around in Columbia.
Yeah, big time. But I'll tell you, Bob Simmons is going to get second guess for that decision because he could have kicked the PAT that sent it into 3rd overtime.
Dean Royal to punt it. Joe Walker back deep, and boy, it looked like Royal was surprised when the snap came back.
Well, obviously, there was some miscommunication on when the ball was supposed to be snapped.
The foul. Dead ball. False start by the offense. 5-yard penalty. Remains 4th down.
Well, this is the last thing for Kansas that could happen to them. They give up a touchdown on the opening drive. Now they're moving backwards and in all likelihood going to give Nebraska a very good field position. To pull this upset, they have to play it close, Coach.
Play it close and worry about field position. And as you said, Drew, Nebraska's going to get the ball around the 50-yard line, if not further downfield.
Royal with a decent punt to the 41-yard line. This is Harrison, and he is tackled at the 42-yard line. Pretty good coverage by Chad Colner, a backup defensive back. 7-0 Huskers. Memorial Stadium in Lawrence, Kansas. Nebraska's had it once. They drove 71 yards for a touchdown. Kansas had it once, and they went backwards. Nebraska with good field position at their own 42-yard line. Amon Green behind Joe Makovica. And Green gets the call, and he doesn't get anything. Might have lost a yard, in fact. Well, we were talking to Terry Allen yesterday, and he says if you look at all of the big-time upsets over the last 10 years in college football, they're low-scoring games.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've got to be low-scoring games because, and especially tonight, because this is the only way that Kansas can win this football game is to keep Nebraska intact. And by that, we mean under 20 or 21 points. And so far, it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Quick throw, and evidently, Chevin Wiggins on a different page than Scott Frost.
Well, you know, sometimes it's the receiver not hearing. Sometimes it's the quarterback not calling the right play. Obviously, there was some miscommunication there, but I got to believe that the quarterback is usually right on those things. And that's why in a noisy stadium, Drew, people use hand signals. It's not that noisy here tonight, but for some reason, there was a miscommunication between the quarterback and the wide receiver that time.
Temperatures in the mid-40s and heading south. You have to be a trooper to be outside tonight. 3rd down and 10 for the Huskers. Quarterback draw. Frost gets it to the 49-yard line, but he's going to be about 3.5 yards short. Dewey Houston grabbed him, and Nebraska will send their punt team out.
And this has just got to be a great confidence builder right here for this Kansas defense. And Kansas hasn't played that poorly on defense this year. In fact, Colorado last week was their worst game of the year. They were very, very high in all national statistics going into the Colorado game a week ago. So this is an uplift for them from a psychological standpoint.
Just 15 punts. You see 13 there. Actually, there have been 15 punts total by Nebraska all year. That's amazing. And it's blocked. Kansas has blocked it. Jason Harris got there, but Makovica has the football. Unbelievable. Makovica has a first down at the 32-yard line. Kansas makes a play, and Nebraska says, no, you don't.
Well, the rule states you can advance a blocked punt. And what happens very alertly, Makovica sees it and picks it up. That's a great job of coming in and blocking the punt by Harris. But Makovica alertly knows the rules, and he picks it up and goes the right way. A lot of guys would have just fallen on that thing and said, I secured the ball. But he gets some big blocks down the field and very alertly gets positive yardage for a first down. That's a big play.
Another subtle reason why this team is #1 in the nation. They have a reverse setup. Here comes Newcomb, the freshman. Newcomb, touchdown, but a flag came in. That's Bobby Newcomb, the true freshman from Highland High School in Albuquerque. Maybe the future quarterback at Nebraska, but it's coming back.
It's going to be a hold against Nebraska, and that's a great play for them. You know, Newcomb had a big play like that against Baylor a couple of weeks ago, and it couldn't have been called at a more perfect time.
The foul is holding by the offense. 10-yard penalty from spot foul. First down.
Well, they've run that play a few times this year to Newcomb. They took the red shirt off him early.
Well, here it comes. Newcomb's coming around now. I don't see the hold. I do not see the hold by anyone unless it was inside more. But I tell you, Drew, I didn't see it.
First down in 20.
Well, it'll be first down and 20 for the Huskers. I don't know how many times I've seen a block punt turn into a first down for the team that was punting.
Not many. That's the first time for me this year.
Amon Green. And that was cut down in a hurry. Again, Dewey Houston III, the 280-pound senior from Cahokia, Illinois. He's played well early.
Yes, he has, and he loves to play football, and the coaches cannot stop raving about this big 6'4", 280 to 85-pounder. He's a big old guy with 3 sacks this year, and you gotta love big guys like that, Drew, that just play with a great passion for the game of football.
You know, he's a great story. As a freshman, he was a tight end, got in the end zone a couple of times as a freshman. They said, well, your glory days are over. Now we're putting you in the trenches on the defensive side.
Well, that's why he can move around good, because he was an offensive player at one time.
Nebraska calls a timeout on second down and 18. We'll step aside as well. 7-0 Huskers, the top-ranked team in the land in Lawrence, Kansas. Well, I live in Denver, Kevin. That's going to be fun trying to get home tomorrow.
And I'm going through Denver, so can I stay at your house tomorrow night?
If we can get there, we have a bedroom for you.
Are you a good cook?
My wife.
Okay.
You don't want my cooking.
We can watch football together.
Hey, I said one night. You're not sticking around for the weekend. Nebraska on second down and 16. Frost and in and out of the hands of Vershawn Jackson. Let's check in with Greg Bell. Greg, what do you have?
Guys, I'm standing down here on the sideline with one of the most important ingredients in today's game. That's footing. If you take a look at these shoes, these are called what I used to call them grippers because they have a form of a spike to grab into the AstroTurf. A little different than standard turf shoes, which look like basketball shoes.
Oh, what you want, Greg, also is little windshield wipers on the front of your face mask today.
You know what, though? It's kind of stopped raining right now. It's a little windy and a little cold. And right now, I think the weather's having a negative effect on Nebraska.
Third down and a bunch. Frost throwing underneath. It's complete to Makavicka, but well short of where he needed to get. In fact, about 13 yards short of where he had to go. And it's kind of a gray area situation for Nebraska. Field goal attempt here would be in the neighborhood of 53 yards.
You know what, Drew? I think you punt, though, here, and you play the field position game because your defense is playing good and will play good against this Kansas offense, who's had problems all year. And right now, what's happening, Nebraska can't get yardage on first down, so they're being in a lot of third down situations, plus they had the big penalty.
Well, it is Jesse Cush. He had a punt blocked a few moments ago, but it turned into a Nebraska first down. This one he gets away. And it was off the side of his foot, but it will be okay for Nebraska because it went out of bounds inside the 20-yard line. Down to the 16-yard line, so Kansas is backed up, but they're hanging in, trailing by a touchdown, 7-0. Timeout on the field, 4:16 to go in the opening quarter. We're in Lawrence, Kansas. Rainy, cold night in Lawrence, Kansas. A whole lot of Husker fans have made the trip from Lincoln. Close to 20,000, in fact. Kansas, their second possession, backed up with a 16. Wegner's in trouble. He's going to be sacked. Back at the 11-yard line. Steve Warren, who gets the start tonight, got there. The sophomore from Springfield, Missouri. One 300-pounder goes out, another one comes in.
Yeah, and what happens in this Nebraska front, the great players are Wistrom and Peter, and everybody double teams them, which is why their statistics are down a little bit this year. But then a guy like Warren or Kelsey on the other side are single team, and they are very hard to handle when they're single team, especially a guy like Warren, like you said, who looks like a refrigerator.
Here's a counter to Van. He cuts it back and gets it out to about the 14-yard line. It'll set up third down and approximately 11 yards to go. Jay Foreman, the middle linebacker, the son of Chuck Foreman, the ex-Minnesota Viking great.
You know, I think it's tough to run counter plays against this Nebraska defense because they are so fast. And when you go east and west like that, Drew, they can chase you down. I think Kansas has got to come out and run right at these guys a little bit more so they don't allow the Nebraska defense just to chase them down. And I thought that's what they were going to do tonight.
Third down and 12. Zach Wegner calls a timeout. Kansas has gone the wrong direction offensively in their two series thus far tonight. And if folks are looking in who followed Kansas this year, that has been a familiar refrain, unfortunately, because Kansas has just 2 field goals offensively the last 2 weeks, both losses.
Oh, I know. They've had some problems playing on the road, but Drew, let me give you this stat. On third down coming into this game, on 3rd and 4+, Kansas is 9 out of 72 attempts this year so far. 9 out of 72. They have not been very good on 3rd and 4+.
Well, if I remember my times tables, that's 1 of 8.
That's 1 of 8.
Well, Fox Sports News Primetime takes you one step beyond with in-depth interviews and analysis from around the nation. We are live on site covering your home teams with up-to-the-minute scores and highlights. That's why at Fox Sports News, only we can say we are there. Tonight, after our game with Oregon Southern Cal in the Pac-10, Fox Sports News Primetime. Time of possession, Nebraska's had it. They've produced 1 touchdown. They were forced to punt twice in their last drive. The first one was blocked, but Joel Makovica scooped it up and picked up a first down. Third down and 12. Kansas needs the 26-yard line. Wegner for Patterson, and pretty good coverage downfield, and Kansas will have to punt again. Ralph Brown provided the coverage on Eric Patterson.
Well, one of the things that Kansas wanted to do tonight, they wanted to run a lot of trips formation because they felt they would get Nebraska out of man-to-man coverage and go to zone. And what Nebraska does here with Ralph Brown coming over the top, they play a combination coverage against trip. That's really good defense and really a good execution by the secondary.
Dean Royal punting deep to Joe Walker. Walker calls a fair, no, he didn't call a fair catch. I thought he put his hand up in the air, and maybe he should have. He got hit from all corners. 46-yard punt by Royal, and just a couple on the return. Initially, Hanson Caston grabbed him. Dr. Tom Osborne, this is the silver anniversary season for Osborne, and tonight is his 301st game as the head coach under the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And he's closing in on 250 wins. That's amazing.
You cannot list the accomplishments that Tom Osborne has accomplished at the University of Nebraska. It just will take an hour. This guy is an interesting man. He's revered, but yet very mysterious.
Lamont Green straight ahead for about 3. Kansas defense has been on the field for a while. Our friend Dewey Houston III will get up last again, number 83, but they've done okay.
Yes, they have. And again, what they're doing, they're forcing Scott Frost to either pitch the football like they said they wanted to do, or they're making him throw it. And like I said, there's been a couple of plays, penalties, that have helped them put Nebraska in negative field position. So far, so good for this Jayhawk defense tonight.
Slot to the near side, still Makovica. And Amon Green. Here's the option. Here's Green. First down yardage for Green, tackled by Maurice Gaddy. Didn't look real fancy, but boy, was it productive. 7 yards on the advance.
Well, what you're going to see Dewey Houston the third right there come across the line of scrimmage, take Frost, and force him to pitch. Now, you're going to see a lead blocker out ahead, but this is what Kansas wants to do. And they've got Tony Blevins, the free safety, in the middle of the field, running across to take the pitch man. So, again, on paper, Kansas is doing what they want to do here.
2 tight ends. They counter to Green. This one blown up in the backfield. Steve Bratton, an inside linebacker, got great penetration. The junior from Arvada, Colorado.
Drew, the way you stop the counter play is to get penetration with either your linebackers or your defensive linemen. You're going to see Bratton come up the field here and make the play. Penetration forces the counter to bounce outside, which then allows the rest of your defensive buddies to get there.
A loss of 5 yards. 2nd and 15 for the Huskers. Frost complete to Lance Brown. His 9th reception of the year.
Ratzlaff.
It'll be about 4 yards short of a first down. Pretty good delivery here by Frost.
Yeah, he can run and he can throw. Obviously, the thing he does the best is run the football. But I think him spending 2 years at Stanford under the tutelage of Bill Walsh in that passing attack has really helped this young guy throw the football better.
3rd and 4. Frost, first down yardage and more. Tackled from behind by Patrick Brown. The ball came out late, but they're going to say he was down.
Patrick Brown's been a big play guy for this Kansas defense all year. He is all over the field. He's a guy that intercepted 2 passes early in the year for touchdowns. He comes across, takes care of the pitch, but then comes back and makes a great play on Frost. That's called great hustle. Now you're going to see big old Aaron Taylor here, number 67, pull and make a wonderful block on big old Dewey Houston III. Credit that one to Aaron Taylor, the left offensive guard.
That's a collision of 2 small cars.
And I wouldn't want to be anywhere around that one.
And that will be the final snap of quarter number 1. Nebraska has moved it well, and the number 1 team in the land has a 7-0 lead. We'll be back to Lawrence right after this. Nebraska 7, Kansas nothing at the end of the first chapter in Lawrence. And my partner Artie Gigantino dragged another grease board to the booth this week. Artie.
Got to show it the way it is, Drew. What's happening tonight? Kansas is making Nebraska audible to a blast play inside by taking away the pitch and taking away the quarterback with these 2 guys. They're blocking out, and handing the ball off up inside, which is why Nebraska is running the blast a little bit more than the option so far in the first quarter.
Once a coach, always a coach. With Artie Gigantino and Greg Bell, I'm Drew Goodman. Nebraska on the move. 1st and 10, 27-yard line of Kansas. Got Frost toward the end zone. Touchdown. We talked earlier about pick your poison. You take Frost away, you deal with Amon Green. You take Amon Green away, you deal with Scott Frost.
And as I said, Nebraska had been running the isolation up inside. This time they fake to the fullback, but Frost is the guy who's carrying behind the isolation block. That was all Scott Frost. In fact, he scored on the exact same play, Drew, against Washington earlier in the year in a big Nebraska win over the University of Washington.
Chris Brown out of the hold of Ted Retzlaff. Knocks it right down the middle. And the Huskers lead 14-0. They score on the first play of the second quarter. 10th time under Tom Osborne that Nebraska has begun a season 6-0. They're trying to go to 7-0. And one of the things about Dr. Tom Osborne is he is so consistent. And he was saying earlier this week that our practices are always pretty solid. He said it doesn't vary much week, no matter who we play. And that's probably one of the reasons they are so good each weekend.
Well, what people don't understand, this is a triple option offense. It really is. They just line up a different way. And that guy calls all the plays. He scripts the first 15 plays. And what he does, he gets you in the second quarter, because by the second quarter, Drew, he knows exactly what you're doing.
Mitch Bowles 9 yards deep. We'll put a knee down, and we take a Dr. Pepper game break and head out west to Kevin Frazier. Kevin?
Drew, overtime between Arizona and 10th-ranked Washington State. Wildcats go for 2. Ortiz Jenkins stopped by the Cougs. He tosses the ball into the end zone. Arizona wanted a fumble. Referees not fooled. 35-34 the final. Arizona State up next for Washington State.
How about those Cougars?
Cougars to the Rose Bowl, maybe. I'll tell you, they have got a good football team. And I said it last week. Mike Price is one of the best coaches in the United States.
Well, Artie, they had to come from behind to get that overtime.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They still won.
You're right. Ball's in motion. Here's a delay to Van. Nowhere to go. The Nebraska black shirts respond there. Well, it's a nasty night to be outside. A winter storm warning. Periods of rain, changing to snow later on. The current temperature is 46. Keep in mind it was 49 when the game began, so it has already dropped 3 degrees. And that huge snowstorm that Kevin Frazier talked about in the state of Colorado is coming to Kansas fast.
Real fast.
And John Lewis, the referee, throws a flag.
Substitution violation on the offense. 5 yards.
What happened that time, Drew, once you're in the huddle, you can't run out that late, and that's what happened. They were trying to trick. They had 12 guys in the huddle, and then 1 guy ran out. And this is what happens to football teams that substitute a lot with 2 tight ends, 3 wide receivers, whatever the combination is. Sometimes the players don't hear what the coach is signaling for or calling for on the sidelines.
Second down and 15 after the penalty. Chandler in motion. Wagner wants to screen. Van with the football. But he can't escape Eric Johnson. Another one of those outside linebackers. He's actually a second teamer, though he started a little bit this year. 200-pounder from Phoenix, Arizona. 200-pound linebackers,
well,
Artie.
He used to be a safety, and they moved him up there just for that reason, so he could run around and avoid people in the open field. Nebraska has a weakness in defending the screens because they get up the field so fast. But unless you have athletic linemen that can go downfield and block guys like Johnson, it's not going to work. Washington hurt Nebraska a little bit at the beginning of the year with a couple of screens, but I don't think Kansas could do that tonight. Their linemen are not athletic enough to block guys like Johnson.
Another 3rd and long for Wagner. 3rd and 13. He gets it to his tight end, Brian Gray. And Brian Gray carries a man for a while, but Brian Shaw finally wrestled him to the ground, and Kansas will have to punt again.
You know, Drew, no one gives this Nebraska defense, I don't think, enough credit. They do a great job, obviously, on offense, but year in and year out, they are ranked in the top 10 or 15 in the United States in most defensive categories.
And all of that this year, despite losing 8 starters to graduation. That's amazing.
Yeah, they reload, but that's why they play a lot of guys, so that the guys that have to take over the following year are ready to go.
Joe Walker muffs it and then just falls on it at his own 36-yard line. So Nebraska, with a 14-0 lead, will have it there. Early stages of the second quarter. Tuesday on Fox Sports Net. Don't miss a behind-the-scenes look inside the NFL on NFL Total Access. Followed by hardcore football with featured guests Simeon Rice, Rod Woodson, and Gene Washington. It's NFL coverage like no other network. That's NFL Total Access and hardcore football Tuesday on Fox Sports Net. Check the local listings for the times in your area. Talk about hardcore football. How about hardcore fans?
They don't look hardcore. It's just a tough weather for them.
Yeah.
They are.
Amon Green, a couple of yards. Amon Green had 178 yards last week against Texas Tech in that 29-0 win. 13th time in his career he's gone over 100 yards, yet 5 of those times he's done it without carrying the football 20 times in a game.
Which is an amazing statistic, and I think that guy last year was unfairly criticized. People thought he had a sophomore year slump. He had a couple injuries. He only had 917 yards, but this guy to me is a sleeper in the Heisman Trophy race.
Scott Frost, they did a good job on the option that time. They took everything away, and Jeremy Hannock combined with Patrick Brown and Jason Thorin to bring him down.
And you know, Drew, what you're seeing here now is a couple of different type of plays, because in the second quarter this year, Nebraska has outscored their opponents 93-17. That is great coaching, because Dr. Tom Osborne sits there and evaluates in the first quarter what the defense is doing, and then he starts calling plays accordingly. No one does it better than that guy.
I'd agree with that. 3rd and 8 for Frost to Green. He'll have the first down and more. Dropped at midfield by Jason Harris. Well, whatever he drew up there was the right play.
Well, you know, that's the secret to being a great option team. You line up, you run a formation or two, you see what the defense is doing, and then you try to expose it based on what they're going to do. And that time they see Dewey Houston trying to take Frost. He's been doing it all night. So you crack back on the safety. What you do, you pitch the ball out to Green, and you force the smaller corner to come up and tackle that big old guy in the backfield.
Option look out of the shotgun. And now Frost on first down to throw it. And he couldn't hook up with Matt Davison, one of 6 true freshmen playing for the Huskers this year. Used to be that the Huskers redshirted their entire freshman class no matter what.
Well, you can't do that anymore. With 85 scholarships, you've got some outstanding freshman athletes coming to Nebraska that can help them win football games. Guys like Newcomb, he's a star. Let the guy play. That's why they stay at the top, because they continuously reload. And as you can see here, these people have done something. But I think the most amazing thing is that one right there. In the last 5 years, 53-3, Drew.
That's extraordinary. Top 10, 79 straight weeks. 43 weeks is number 1. Amon Green to the 19-yard line. Manolito Jones finally brought him down.
Well, Drew, they pound you inside, the quarterback keeps it, and then they start pitching. That's why they lead the nation in rushing offense with 401 yards a game. And that is unbelievable by Frost. He's looking right down the field, but he feels Green behind him, and he has that sixth sense to be able to pitch the ball. And Green isn't overly fast, but what he is, he's a tricky runner.
From the 18-yard line, give it to Makovica. Makovica will get in, but there's a flag down at the 16-yard line. So we'll wait and see if Makovica's score stands up. Yes, it will. 18-yard touchdown for Joel Makovica, the pride of East Butler High School in the farm community of Brainerd, Nebraska. Didn't even play 11-man football in high school.
8-man football. I just want to know what position he played in 8-man. But you know, Spike Dykes, the guy, the coach at Texas Tech, described him perfectly. He is a blue-collar football player. Here, he knocks into one of his own guys, runs him over, and then just keeps his feet moving and gets up the field. He can't believe he's wide open again, Drew. This guy's going to be the mayor of Lincoln before this year's over.
Chris Brown makes it 21-0. Well, Scott Frost would say, not bad for a short guy.
I can't believe he said that.
Yes, he is, Kevin. He's been in the end zone twice. See, this guy right here, this is a dual-purpose little gadget. Not only does it state your allegiance to Nebraska, but it also keeps your ears warm, Artie.
Yeah, and I wonder how many cocktails that guy had prior to this game, but I'm not sure I'd walk around with something like that on my head.
Maybe prior to purchasing that. 21-0 Nebraska. Bowles, Mitch Bowles won't get near the 20-yard line. Stopped at the 16. Let's take a look at our Burger King game summary. Makovica in the end zone twice. Scott Frost has a 39-yard touchdown run. Kansas with 9 yards of total offense. And to help their defense out, they had to get something done early.
Oh, yeah, and they're not doing it, obviously. 1 yard rushing, and I'll tell you, last week, Nebraska only gave up 17 yards rushing to Texas Tech. Now, there's our guy right there. We're going to make this guy a hero. The only thing about that, he's got to change that hairdo a little bit, because he's not going to get any dates with a hairdo like that. And I'm not sure he cares.
Well, I'm not going there. Wegner, quick slant. Chandler pays for it. Picks up maybe a yard. He got knocked around by Octavius McFarland. Let's go downstairs, check in with Greg Bell. Greg?
Well, after that last series, I watched the defense as well as the offense for KU come off the field. Coming into this game, Terry Allen said he wanted to see heart from his team and see who was going to battle all the way through 4 quarters. And I tell you what, guys, the motivation doesn't seem there for them. Hopefully their spirits can stay high and they can stay in this game.
Well, as we talked about off the top, the only way to stay in with Nebraska is to do something positive early in the football game. And that hasn't happened other than a blocked punt. They dropped the ball in the quarterback center exchange, and just like that, it's going to be 3rd down and long again. And this is not a team that can convert 3rd and long.
No, and you're so right about what you said about, you know, trying to do something good early, Drew, because you want to get some life and you want to have some belief that you can do it. Because tonight, going into this game, this is kind of what Terry Allen wanted. He wanted a dreary atmosphere, and he wanted something where the lights went out.
Artie, this might be Kansas's best shot right now. A whole bank of lights has gone out. And both teams will go to their respective sidelines. And these lights are new here at Memorial Stadium in Lawrence. In fact, at the end of the season, they are going to begin a $28 million renovation of Memorial Stadium. 8th oldest stadium in college football. And one of the things they're going to do is revamp the underneath section of the stadium, the concessions and bathroom areas, that sort of thing. They're going to put in a Jumbotron scoreboard, and then they're going to completely redo the press box and the locker room facilities. It's a 2-year project.
Well, one of the things you have to do in today's football is compete from a facility standpoint for recruiting purposes alone. Because believe me, when recruits come to campus, they say that, hey, what kind of facilities do you have here?
Nebraska leads 21-0. Hopefully the lights will be back on when we return to Lawrence. Well, when we left you, the lights went out. And you know what? The lights are still out here in Lawrence, Kansas. There's 9:36 to go in the 2nd quarter. Nebraska leads 21-0. Kansas is facing a 3rd and 11 at their own 15-yard line. Now, Tom Osborne has gotten together with Terry Allen and John Lewis, the referee, at around the 30-yard line, and they're discussing, I guess, what to do. And Artie, it's too dark to play football down in that corner of the field.
Well, it certainly looks like it, but I think, you know, the coaches, they got a couple decisions to make. Number one, how long is this thing going to take to fix, if they can fix it? If they cannot fix it, do you try to continue the game in the, quote, the darkness, or do you cancel the game? And I'm not sure that's going to happen because, again, there's a lot of discussion going on, and we're not privy to the information.
Or do you do like you used to do when you were a high school coach and have all the parents line up with their cars and put the headlights on the field?
Not a bad idea.
Could be. Before we're done. Right now, let's get you out west to our Fox Television Center and Kevin Frazier. Kevin, Nebraska leads 21-0, and we're being told that despite 2 banks of lights being out, they're going to play football. And this probably doesn't bother Nebraska because they just run the football, but Kansas wants to throw it. It's going to be a little tougher to see.
Well, but Kansas hasn't been exactly throwing the ball down the field so far, and I think that the area that's going to affect the most is probably the punting game. When the ball's way up around the top of the stadium, it might be difficult to see, but I think this is a good move by both coaches, Drew, because, hey, you prepared for the game, your kids want to play, you don't want to just cancel the game and have to play it some other time. I think this is the right move by both of these coaches and athletic directors. Go play the game.
That's what they'll do. 3rd and 11 for Kansas at their own 15.
You know, Drew, I think it's an offensive disadvantage, though, to be standing on the sidelines for 10 minutes and then come out and have to snap the ball. I think the defense has got the advantage here.
Slot to the top. 2 tight ends for the Jayhawks. Peter sacks Wegner back at the 2-yard line for Jason Peter, his 4th sack of the year. The co-captain from Locust, New Jersey.
You know, and like I said, it affects the offense a little bit more. But Peter is a great player. See him to the left inside. He comes underneath. He continues up the field, and he does just a wonderful job of beating the block and getting to the quarterback. That's a big-time play by a big-time guy that's going to be in the National Football League next year in the first 20 picks in the NFL draft. That guy, Charlie McBride, the defensive coordinator, said is the best at his position he has ever coached.
Dean Royal will have to punt it out of the back of his end zone. And he hits it pretty well. Joe Walker backs up to midfield, lost the football. And then he got it back. So even the bounces have gone the way of the Huskers tonight.
True, that's exactly what I was talking about. I think the lights will affect the kicking game, if nothing else, because that time Walker, who's got great hands, I saw him in practice the last 2 days, caught every punt in practice, but now he's got to look up into the sky. The ball disappears into the darkness, and he loses it a little bit. And you know why he lost it? Because he kept looking up when the ball hit his hands. He never watched the ball into his hands. So bingo, right there, Drew, the lights have an effect.
Look at the total offense already. 247 for Nebraska. Kansas in negative yards.
Yeah, the lights had nothing to do with that statistic.
Nothing.
Believe me.
You know what this kind of reminds me of?
Some of those guys did.
Yes, Wistrom and Peter and Octavius McFarland. Now Terry Allen has walked out onto the field. He's at the far hash mark. Tom Osborne's coming out. John Lewis is getting the coaches together. And they're looking up, obviously, at the bank of lights. There are 2 banks that are out here in Lawrence.
And, you know, for our folks at home, 2 lights are on, right, Drew?
Yeah, 2 sets are on.
2 sets, 2 banks are on, 2 are off.
That's right. See, the far side is okay, and then the near side, as we pan to it, that set of lights is out, and by all indications, they're not coming on anytime soon. Nebraska leading 21-0, 8:28 to go in the second quarter. The Huskers have it at the Jayhawk 43. Straight ahead to Amon Green, but a flag came in on the snap of the ball. Brett McGraw made the tackle, the nose guard for Kansas. And Kansas either lined up offside or jumped early. And let's check in with Greg Bell. Greg?
One of the things you'll notice from this game, of course, with the lights, but to look at the stripes on the balls. If this was a national football game, it couldn't be continued because the ball would basically disappear in the air. It's very dark down here on the field, and as you look up, not only will you see a dark ball, but you'll see flickers of light because you have to look up into the little spotted lights that are still lit right now.
Maybe they can, Greg, have a neon football put into the football game. It'd be easier to see on punts and kicks.
Charlie Finley, let's go find him. Isn't he the guy?
Yeah, exactly. 1st and 5 for Nebraska. Green. Good reaction coming up and making the play. Tony Blevins, a sure tackler. The free safety, a senior from down the road in Kansas City.
Rockhurst High School, one of the best programs in the United States. And he is a guy that's got to be on his game tonight to come up and tackle a guy like Green. And I think you're going to see Green and you're going to see this offense continue to click here because, again, Nebraska doesn't throw the ball as much as most teams. They're one of the few teams in the country that are a great football team that relies solely on the run.
Green already with his 14th career 100-yard day. And he'll add a little bit to it here. He lost the football. But on it is Sheldon Jackson. Sheldon Jackson grabbed it. That's the 3rd time tonight that Nebraska has put the ball on the ground. But all 3 times they've recovered their own fumbles. One of the interesting things about Nebraska, they're 6-0, #1 in the nation. They lead the nation in total offense, top 5 in the country on defense. Yet in turnover margin, the most important statistic of all, they're dead even.
And you know, it's very unusual for a Tom Osborne team. And we'll talk about it after this play. There's a great stat on that.
3rd down and 6 for Nebraska. Frost on the option. will be cut down shy of a first down by Jason Thorin, the senior inside backer from right here in Lawrence.
You know, going back to the turnover statistic, Drew, under Tom Osborne, coming into this season, Nebraska was plus 161 in the turnover margin, and only one time, 1984, did he ever have minus in this area.
That's extraordinary.
I mean, that's just, you talk about precision and efficiency. That's what this Nebraska team is. They don't get penalized. They don't get kicks returned against them for touchdowns. They're efficient in the kicking game, and obviously they don't turn the ball over.
Tony Blevins back deep. Jesse Cush hits it about 2 yards too far. And it'll be a touchback, and it'll come out to the 20-yard line. Kansas with 5:59 to go in the first half, being shut out. They need to get it going on offense. Now, college football Saturday rolls on with a Pac-10 battle coming up as Saladin McCullough and the Oregon Ducks fly south to the Coliseum to take on the Trojans of Southern Cal, Artie Gigantino's old club. That's coming up next on Fox Sports Net's College Football Saturday. Check your local listings. Ball's on the ground for Kansas again. And you know what? We have good news to report. The lights are coming back on in Lawrence.
Well, you know, what happens when they go out like that, I think they have to cool down and they start up again. I think I remember that somewhere.
What are you, an electrician?
In electrician class somewhere along the line.
Yeah, right.
But no, that's what happens in these situations. And that's what Terry Allen walked across the field, I think, to tell Tom Osborne that the lights were going to come back on. You don't believe me, do you?
Certainly, I'm buying into that. Second down and 13 for Kansas. Eric Van, the single setback. Wagner, another Nebraska sack. He took a 3-step drop, and he still didn't have time. Grant Wistrom got there. Just the second sack for the All-American Wistrom on the season. But he has had a very productive year despite the low sack total.
Well, he gets double-teamed all the time, and people want to keep it tight in on him all the time. And it's against Dan Dircher, who is a young guy who's playing for the second time only at offensive tackle. They put him in the starting lineup a week ago against Colorado. That's an experienced, big-time player against an inexperienced young player.
Eric Van runs it, and he's gang tackled out at the 18-yard line on 3rd down and 17, and Kansas will punt again. Dean Royal has been very, very busy.
You know, Drew, it's getting a little cold out here. You see some of the Kansas players around the heater. They want to keep warm. And the area of your body that you want to keep warm is your feet, because your feet get you up and down the football field. But I don't see anybody from Nebraska on Nebraska's sidelines around the heater. They're feeling pretty good about themselves.
Now, they're staying pretty warm on the field.
Absolutely.
Royal, this is a monster punt. I mean, this is an enormous punt. Wiggins takes it, and he's tackled immediately at the 14-yard line. A punt of 66 yards. It's not his career long, however. He had an 82-yarder earlier.
Yeah, he had an 82-yarder against Missouri earlier in the year. But you know, that is not the Kansas record. John Hadel's got the Kansas record with a 94-yarder. Now, what happened there? I thought the Nebraska return man there did a nice job of letting the ball bounce because he couldn't field it properly. And you can tell that Royal's fired up, and that's good for his stats there, Drew. That's good for the old average when the ball rolls 20 yards.
I'll tell you what, it's not only a punt of 66, it's a net punt of 66. Good coverage. So Nebraska, for the first time today, without good field position. Scott Frost on the option, a minimal gain. Patrick Brown, the junior from Westerville, Ohio, made the tackle. And let me tell you a quick story about Patrick Brown. He's a young man who wants to get into theater. He wants to move out near you into Hollywood, be an actor.
Well, his favorite actor is Wesley Snipes, and he wants to be either an actor or a director. And his favorite director is a guy by the name of Quentin Tarantino. Now, I wonder which he's going to end up being, a director or an actor. Be an actor, make more money.
Steven Spielberg's done okay. Frost trying to cut it back, nowhere to go. Jason Thorin and Patrick Brown on cue. if you will. It'll set up 3rd down and long for Nebraska. There's Mr. Brown coming up at halftime. Kevin Frazier and Solomon Wilcox will talk about overtime. One in the Big 12, one in the Pac-10. All sorts of highlights coming up at the break. 21-0 here. Nebraska, the #1 ranked team in the nation, leading Kansas with 2:40 to go in the first half. Drew Goodman, Artie Gigantino, and Greg Bell. Shuttle pass. And Amon Green will be stopped about a yard short. Tony Blevins made the hit.
You know, Drew, that was a double slot formation that time where you got 2 wide receivers and 2 slot guys. And what Frost is going to do is going to start to run. He doesn't have a pitch man, but he's going to run a forward pitch to Green. We call that a shuttle pass. And sometimes when you get players from the defense coming aggressively up the field, you can just give him that little pitch and he can run right underneath them. It didn't work that time. Kansas was obviously ready for it.
Jesse Cush to punt it again. Tony Blevins, who has a punt return for a touchdown this year back at his own 35, and now whistles flag.
Well, I'll bet you Kansas tries to come after it here.
Delay a game by the offense. 5-yard penalty. Remains 4th down.
Anytime you see a penalty against Nebraska, it's unusual, and especially a delay a game penalty, because that is kind of an organizational type of thing, and they're always the most organized, most efficient team in the nation.
Absolutely, but what happens? You're ahead by 21-0 here in the middle of the 2nd quarter. Players begin to lose concentration sometimes.
Low snap, Cush handles it, and it's a low punt, and it takes a Kansas hop, and then it hit a Nebraska player. So Kansas will have good field position at their own 46-yard line, trailing by 3 touchdowns. Time to check our GTE academic performers of the game. We always love to tell you about these guys, the guys that get it done not only on the field but in the classroom. Brian Shaw, perfect 4.0 in animal science for Nebraska, and Hamilton Hill, the backup quarterback for Kansas, is a perfect 4.0 in poli-sci, something you didn't study in college. You told me you were a kinesiology.
I was a kinesiology major. Congratulations to Brian Shaw. He made an all-walk-on team this week in the national publication.
Trips to the top. Wegner had some time, and it was knocked down, deflected at the line of scrimmage. Wegner was looking to Tanner Hancock, who was running the quick post route. Steve Warren might have gotten a big mid up there and deflected it.
One of the problems that Kansas is having with their offense this year is the speed and the experience at wide receiver. Their quarterback, because they can't get open, has to hold the football. And as a result, the defensive linemen have a chance to get up and knock the ball down. But the problem has been in this Kansas offense is the wide receivers getting open.
Wegner trying to throw it away. Ralph Brown picked it off, and he was inbounds. No, now they're going to say he was juggling it, and it will go as an incompletion. Brown thought he had his 2nd pick of the year.
Ralph Brown out of Bishop Ammon High School out in Los Angeles is one of the premier defensive backs in the country. And what he does there, Drew, he concentrates on the football. He sees the ball thrown. He knows the receiver's not going to get it, but he concentrates on the football, gets it in his hands, and tries to see where he is. I was a heck of a play by him, and I think it might have been an interception, Drew.
Looked very close. 3rd and 10 for Kansas. 1:18 to go in the 2nd quarter. Chandler in motion, blitz coming, inside handoff, man. No, Wegner still has it. Not for long, he's dropped deep in the backfield. Grant Wistrom with his 2nd sack of the night.
Drew, that was going to be a bootleg pass, and the worst thing that you can do when you're running a bootleg is to run it into a blitz. Now, obviously, Kansas didn't know a blitz was coming, but it was the perfect call that time by the defensive staff at Nebraska. They ran a blitz, an outside blitz, into a bootleg. The quarterback has basically got no chance to be successful on that unless he just jukes the guy coming off the corner, and he couldn't do it that day.
And that's not Wegner's game.
And that's not his game. He's more of a drop-back passer. He's the guy that's going to drop back there and throw the ball up the field. But what they're not doing tonight, Drew, they're not getting rid of the ball fast enough.
Coverage has been good downfield, and Nebraska pass rush gets there. Again, a reminder coming up at halftime. A great game in overtime in the Big 12, Oklahoma State and Missouri. You're not going to believe that one. And an overtime game involving Washington State in the Pac-10. And we'll have all of the highlights from around the country.
So far, Drew, Kansas has had 18 plays for 19 total yards tonight. I'd say this is a dominated first half by Nebraska so far.
I would tend to agree with you. 1 minute to go. Nebraska will have an opportunity perhaps to put more points on the board, though they have just one timeout left. Dean Royal will punt it deep to Joe Walker, who's back at his own 25-yard line. Walker to the 20. Chevin Wiggins on the return, not Joe Walker. And let's take a look at some other scores from around the Big 12 this afternoon. Missouri in 2 overtimes puts Oklahoma State down for the first time this year.
I still question that call by the coaching staff at Oklahoma State. I think you kick the PAT and then get the 2-pointer later on. Give your guys a chance.
And look at Texas Tech. They knock off Texas A&M 16-13. Colorado 47-30 over Texas. Where's the defense gone in Austin? Frost hit hard from behind. How he hung on, I have no idea. Dewey, Houston again.
Big Dewey, I'll tell you, he's a guy that can come up the field and do a great job against any offensive lineman. These coaches love him.
It'll be 2nd and 17. Frost, quarterback draw. Not much there. Steve Bratton wasn't fooled. He grabbed him around his ankles, and then Hanson Caston, junior college transfer, number 11, finished him off.
You know, Nebraska's not behind very much, so they don't have to throw the ball as much as other teams. And then when they have to, sometimes they're not very good at it.
21-0, Nebraska at halftime. The Cornhuskers, number 1 in the land. They have the number 1 offense in the land, and they were very, very efficient in that first 30 minutes already.
That's the perfect word for them, Drew. They're an efficient football team that came in here tonight and is in here tonight. Unemotional. They're just going about their business. And that's Tom Osborne, though. He just said, hey, I worry about my team tonight, not necessarily the Kansas team, how my team performs.
Well, some critics will say Tom Osborne is unemotional and he's boring and dull, and he says that's fine. And his team goes out and they're never flat. They play at a consistently high level, which is a testament to just what Tom Osborne has done for 25 years.
Absolutely. He's not an extroverted guy. He's not flamboyant. And at the beginning, that's why I said he's revered, but he's a little mysterious because he is so even-keeled. And in today's football, most coaches and announcers are not so even-keeled. They're up and down.
Oh, no. We have to give pep pills to get you going. 21-0. Nebraska leads Kansas at halftime. From Lawrence, we go to Hollywood, and Kevin Frazier in the Fox Television Center. Kevin? Top-ranked Nebraska Cornhuskers shutting out the Jayhawks 21-0. Let's take a recap of the first half. Owned by the Huskers. 253 yards of total offense, minus 19 for Kansas. No first downs for the Jayhawks. Back upstairs with Artie Gigantino, I'm Drew Goodman. No first downs. 5 of Kansas's 6 drives went backwards, Artie. That's not good.
No, and you know, we talked about it during the broadcast. Everybody talks about this Nebraska offense, and they're great. Win the national championship without playing great defense. And Nebraska has and is and will continue to play great defense this year.
Well, they certainly have tonight. They did a week ago when they shut out Texas Tech. Greg Bell was able to check in with John Lewis, our referee, and Greg Bell updates us on that conversation. Greg?
Well, I talked to John Lewis, and the one thing he told me was the protocol. Had the game had been suspended for more than an hour, it would have ended at that point. which means the score would have ended at 21-0, and Nebraska would have been awarded the win. He's the man who makes that call. He counsels with both coaches, and then they go from there.
All right, Greg, thank you. Kansas will get the football to begin things in the second half. And Termaine Fulton carried it out to about the 17-yard line. So Kansas in desperate need of getting something going offensively. They have been troubled by an unproductive offense all season long.
You know, we were talking too about why the Kansas offense is playing poorly, and one of the reasons is the Nebraska defense. But the Nebraska special teams sets up their offensive defense with positive field position all the time.
Gray goes in motion, give it to Eric Van. And that is the first down of the game for Kansas. And a bit of that old Bronx cheer from the faithful here at Memorial Stadium.
But that's what Terry Allen told us yesterday he wanted to do, to line up and run the ball right at this Nebraska team. And that's what he does that time. He doesn't pull any guards. He just hands the ball off to Van, and he goes straight ahead on his own play. I really think that's what you have to do to get positive yards on Nebraska.
14-yard gain for Van. Give it to him again. And he has about 4 more to the 35-yard line. Steve Warren will get credit for the tackle, number 96 defensively. Nebraska so consistent in every area, and we've talked about it throughout this broadcast. Do they have any weakness at all, as Octavius McFarland is still down on the field?
Well, the one area I think they have a weakness, quote, is maybe in the secondary, and that's only because of inexperience. I think they've got some really outstanding athletes back there that will eventually mature and be outstanding players for this football team. But that is the one area where, quote, there's a weakness. Central Florida threw for 3 touchdown passes against Nebraska earlier in the year and scored 24 points in the game. But part of it was because of the inexperience in the secondary. But George Darlington, one of the premier secondary coaches in the country, has been in Nebraska for 25 years, says this will be a great group before the year's over.
Well, they have done a very nice job tonight against Zach Wegner. They've tried to pick on Ralph Brown a couple of times. That has not been a good idea. Only 3 completions for Wegner, and Kansas ultimately wants to throw the football. We mentioned this last week when we saw Kansas and Boulder play Colorado. Terry Allen wants his team. He says his team will look very much like Colorado in a couple of years.
Yeah, and I think that's what you have to do if you're an up-and-coming program in the Big 12 right now, is go out, find a great quarterback, and throw the football.
But McFarland walks off, and it's 2nd down and 7. Van the ball tough couple of yards. Well, the Jayhawks this year at home have been very, very good. They are 4-0, and all time they have just 5 5-win seasons at home. They have an opportunity to do that, and at 4-3, they can realistically think about a bowl game. Now, they might not come back and beat Nebraska. That's a long shot, but if they can get the 6 wins, they're bowl eligible.
Absolutely, and they just got to figure out a way, though, Drew, to win on the road.
3rd down and 4. Wegner, quick drop underneath. 1st down, the reception by Brian Gray. Wegner took a shot to deliver the football. He's just now getting up, checking his equipment.
Well, he's got those rib pads on, and that protects a quarterback right there. And Nebraska comes with a blitz off the corner. But what Wegner does, he does a great job of seeing Gray and delivering the ball. Now watch the hit on him. He got bang, he just pays the price. That is a big time hit by Brian Shaw.
Van slides through an opening just short of midfield. Jay Foreman, the middle backer, again the tackle, but a nice gain on 1st down for Kansas, and this is easily their best drive of the football game.
Well, Terry Allen must have done a good job at halftime, because one of the negatives is a guy like McFarland, who looks like he's going to be okay. They are light. He's 5'11", 200 pounds, and if you run right at him, he has a hard time taking on those big offensive linemen in terms of shedding the block.
Offset eye, Van in trouble, and a loser.
Eric Van is pulled down around the 42.
Tackled in the backfield by Chad Kelsey.
You know, Kelsey's an interesting guy because Peter and Wistrom play on the other side. So what happens, teams don't want to run to that side, so they run at the guy that no one's ever heard of, Chad Kelsey. And as a result, Kelsey's having one great year. He makes a lot of plays, and the more he continues to start for this black shirt defense, the better he's gotten.
Third down and 8 for Kansas. Chad Kelsey, another one of those great students for Tom Osborne. He had a 4.0 in the spring as a finance major. Kansas needs the Nebraska 47. They'll go out of the gun. 5 coming. Deep ball to Thornton just over his head, and he's out of step on Erwin Sweeney.
One of the things that Kansas wanted to do in this game was line up the trips and try to beat, and here's Fulton, the inside guy. You're going to see man-to-man coverage, try to beat Nebraska down the field. And Wegner does a good job of finding him. He's just not open. That is good coverage that time and a little bit too much air under the ball. Fulton is the fastest receiver at Kansas.
Chevin Wiggins back deep. Dean Royal punt is a little bit short. And it's taken by one of the upbacks. That is Bobby Newcomb. So Nebraska will have it when we return to Lawrence for the first time in the second half. They lead 21-0 over the Jayhawks. Yeah, hug the person next to you. A night to try and stay warm in Lawrence, Kansas. The game time temperature in the mid-40s and the wind chill factor down below freezing. Tom Osborne, it would take 2 days of a monologue to list all of his accomplishments, but Nebraska has won 43 straight in the month of October. How about that? Their last loss in October, 20-10 in Boulder, Colorado, to the Buffaloes back in 1986.
Long time ago. I just think these guys play good all the time. The only problem they've had is in the month of January, Drew. They're 6-12 under Tom Osborne in the month of January.
But they're pretty good in January in 94 and 95.
Absolutely.
26-0 those 2 years. They're trying for a 3rd national championship in 4 years. Frost, nowhere to run. Steve Bratton has been all over the place tonight for the Jayhawks.
Once again, some penetration that time, and they're trying to take Frost out of the option. And you're going to see Bratton come up inside, but the guy who makes it is number 63, Deion Johnson, because he turns it back inside by stuffing both the guards that were pulling. That's a tackle that time for Bratton to give the guy, number 63, Deion Johnson, who took up all the blockers, Drew, give him the credit for the play.
3rd down and 7. Frost. And he's run out of bounds short of a 1st down. Bratton was there. Manolito Jones also pushed him out. So Nebraska turned away on their initial possession. And if you're Terry Allen, you have to like what the defense did there. They didn't lay down. They didn't look at the scoreboard and say, boy, we're not getting anything done offensively, and feel sorry for themselves.
No, and what they did, I like what they did on offense, too. It's the first drive of the second half that sets the tempo for the way you're going to play. And obviously, Kansas has come out inspired, motivated, and really playing with the passion so far.
It's been a busy night for Jesse Cush. Usually he's called on about once an evening. Tony Blevins juggles it, nowhere to go, and he is swarmed under inside the 25-yard line. 10:07 to go in the 3rd quarter, 21-0 Nebraska. Tuesday is a great day to be with us on Fox Sports Net. NFL Total Access and hardcore football. That's every Tuesday on Fox Sports Net. Always check your local listings.
It's a great program. I really enjoy watching it.
I like watching it because they don't sit in seats and talk about football. They get out and they block and they tackle. They do what you do.
Yeah, they move around.
We got to get you on that show. Eric Van with a nice little opening, though it closes in a hurry. Eric Warfield reacts up. Talk about team speed, and for Nebraska, You have to go back to the late 80s when Florida State and Miami in those January bowl games really handled Nebraska, and they learned something.
They did, because the one thing Tom Osborne does, he tries to stay ahead of the curve, and he went and changed the 52 defense to this in-your-face, up 4-3 play man to compete with the speed teams that kept beating him.
Rucker has Wedner, he throws it away, an incomplete pass. Mike Rucker wanted to sack the 6'6" junior from St. Joseph, Missouri, who has the wingspan of a 7-footer.
You know what, Drew? That's how you define the word containment. When the quarterback's out on the corner and the defensive end keeps him inside or brings him down. I thought that might have been a strip there and the ball rolled out of bounds. But you know, that's an example right there, Drew, of Nebraska changing their defense. He used to be an outside linebacker. Now he's a defensive end. Look at that statistic, though. 13 total yards for Kansas so far in the game and 258 to Nebraska. But second half, 5 for Nebraska.
Now Kansas has to get it in the end zone. Right now they have a 3rd and 6. Trips to the top. Blitz coming from the Huskers. Wegner gets it away and over the head of Tremaine Fulton again. Covered like a glove by Ralph Brown. Ralph Brown, the first true freshman a year ago to start a Nebraska opener since World War II.
It's amazing, but he's a talented guy, and he will be a 3-time All-American here. He comes from one of the great high school football programs in the country, Bishop Amat, out in the Los Angeles area.
The other young corner, Erwin Sweeney, starting on the other side as a true freshman as well. He's from Northeast High School in Lincoln. Dean Royal, this is an end-over-end job. And Harrison grabs it on a hop. A dangerous play by Brendan Harrison, but he holds on. A flag comes in at the 41-yard line.
You know, Drew, that is an ill-advised decision by him. What you have to do when the ball is bouncing around like that is yell, Peter, Peter, Peter. That means all the guys with white helmets get away from the football and let it roll.
John Lewis indicates it's against Kansas.
5-yard interference handle violation on the receiving, on the kicking team. First down.
What you do, Drew, you have to give him 2 yards to catch the football, and obviously didn't.
9:12 to go in the third quarter, Artie. 21-0 Nebraska. We're in Lawrence, Kansas. Nebraska, the #1 team in the land, 21-0 over Kansas. Second longest uninterrupted rivalry in college football. 92nd straight meeting. Makovica meet Steve Bratton, and 83 Dewey Houston III. Deion Johnson also in there. Let's go to Los Angeles at Dr. Pepper Game Break with Kevin Frazier. Kevin?
Drew, perhaps Bobby Bowden has found the cure for his ailing running game. Travis Minor, a freshman, he goes 87 yards on the first play of the game against Virginia. This one is not a contest up in Charlottesville. There will not be an upset, Drew. 37, Florida State on top.
Hey, Kevin, we can't forget about the Seminoles. They're not bad. They'll be in that national championship hunt. This one was dropped by Vershawn Jackson.
Little bootleg that time, a little bit of a different play that Nebraska's used to running. And what happens when a guy like Vershawn does not catch a lot of passes during the game, when he gets one thrown to him in this cold, wet weather, he drops it because he's not used to it. He's used to doing a lot of blocking. Those guys have got to warm up a little bit more on the sidelines, Drew, and catch a few more passes.
What are you talking about? He's got 3 receptions.
Yeah, right. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Third down for Frost. He has it away, incomplete. The ball hit the turf before Lance Brown could grab it. So Nebraska will have to punt again.
You know what? Another big series by that Kansas defense. And Kansas is playing inspired football right now. And you're going to see out on the corner, and this is from before Frost almost gets over the top of Dewey Houston, but the guy who causes that, Drew, is Dewey Houston right there, of getting up into his face, and he forces the bad throw. That is considered a hurry by the defensive line coach. Made him throw a bad pass by hurrying him.
Almost as important as a sack.
Sometimes more important.
Tony Blevins back deep. Cush line drive effort. And Blevins will watch this one die inside the 5-yard line. Kansas backed up again. They've been better on offense here in the third quarter, but have not come within sniffing distance in the Nebraska end zone. Well, here's the route Nebraska will have to take to reach a national championship game, and also what Penn State, #2 in the land, has left. Oklahoma next week. Long-time rivalry, but it's not the same Oklahoma team as we saw in the 70s and the 80s. Probably the toughest game left in Boulder on November 28th. Penn State still has to play 3 more ranked teams.
Yeah, they've got a tougher schedule than Nebraska does, but Nebraska cannot stub its toe in Boulder, and then they've got to go win that game in San Antonio, which will be the Big 12 championship game, and then go to the Orange Bowl and play somebody, hopefully for them, for the national championship. But like you said, Penn State's got a very, very difficult schedule, and they're idle this weekend.
Jason Peter made the tackle on Eric Van after a 2-yard gain. 7:40 to go in the third quarter. 21-0 the score at halftime. It remains 21-0. Staggered eye for the Jayhawks. Draw to Van. Nowhere to go. Eric Warfield reacts up from his safety spot.
You see what Kansas is doing here now, Drew? They changed. The first couple times this half, they came out and just handed the ball off to Van out of a 1-back formation. Now they go back to pulling a guard, and what happens? You're going to see the guard pull on the top here. Number 73 is going to get around, but he gets in the way because he gets dinged at the line of scrimmage. They can't do that. They're not athletic enough in the offensive line to be pulling around because Nebraska will chase you down. Hand the ball off and run right at Nebraska like you did in the first 2 series.
3rd down and 9 for the Jayhawks. They go conservative. Eric Van meets another 3 white jerseys. Boy, are they quick. Jason Peter there again. Also, Tony Ortiz. Tony Ortiz, 37, a sophomore from Waterbury, Connecticut. He's a backup, and when he was recruited out of high school, he was the top prep linebacker in the country. He's not even a starter.
I know, and you know what happened to him when he came to Nebraska? He got sick, and he lost a lot of weight, got weak, and it's taken him a year now to come back. But he is a wonderful prospect that these coaches think will be an All-American someday here at Nebraska.
You just have to wait your turn.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Royal punts it toward Wiggins. Shevin Wiggins from the 45. And he gets it to about the 40. A punt of 39. We'll step aside again. 5:54 to go in the third. It's been all Huskers. The superlatives for Nebraska roll on and on. They lead 21-0. The last regular season conference game they lost 1992 in Ames, Iowa, of all places, 19-10 to the Iowa State Cyclones. Amon Green spilled by Jason Thorin after a short gain, and we check tonight's First Plus Financial Conference leaders. Rushing offense in the Big 12, Nebraska, #1 in the nation. Points, 43 a game, #2 to UCLA by a smidgen. In total offense, they are #1 everywhere.
And you know, it's amazing. You look at that rushing offense since 1978. They've been in the top 4 every year in rushing offense. Truly an amazing statistic.
Frost on the option. Run out of bounds at the 22-yard line.
Drew, great ball handling that time by Scott Frost. He fakes the ball inside to the fullback. The Kansas defense bites on it. Wonderful, wonderful ball handling that time.
Well, playing against Nebraska, an absolute nightmare from a defensive coordinator's perspective. And Ardell Wiegand's been around for a long time.
Coach with the Green Bay Packers, Buffalo Bills, a real veteran that understands how to stop this team, Nebraska.
Frost Slips to the 15-yard line.
But you know, Drew, sometimes the way you draw it up isn't the way it comes out, because the players on the field still have to perform your scheme. And like we said, Wiegand is an experienced guy. This time you're going to see the backside dart pull. You're going to see the I-back hit up inside. That is called a quarterback blast. The play they ran for a touchdown before. They ran for a touchdown earlier in the year against the University of Washington.
It got 8 yards, that quarterback blast. 2 tight ends. Ahman Green. Steve Pratt gave him a kiss. He's had a terrific game.
Well, you know, his dad's a coach. He's a very heady, intelligent football player that can really diagnose and read the play as it's coming. That time he was coming on a blitz, but he has a wonderful feeling for what is coming. And we talked to him the other day based on sometimes the stances of the offensive linemen. He can tell by the whites in their knuckles. He can tell by whether the heel's up or down, whether it's going to be run or pass.
That's where film study comes in.
And he's a real film studier type of linebacker.
Frost, Ahman Green trying to get to the sticks, won't get there. Stopped a couple of yards shy. Good short tackle from Avery Randall.
That time, the play really developed slow. Now, what you're going to see Frost take it all the way out on the corner to try to buy as much time for the defenders to make a decision. But you're going to see Kansas do a nice job of reacting to the crack. You're going to get a crack block here, and this guy's going to come over the top and replace. That is wonderful defense that time by defensive backfield coach Vic Mosley's secondary players of Kansas.
4th and 2, they'll go. And it's a long 2. Green, nowhere to go. What a play by Victor Bullock. Redshirt freshman from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He was not fooled.
That's called Bronco run support. Bronco meaning the backer on the line of scrimmage will take the pitch. And you're going to see Frost pitches the ball. But he should have kept the ball because he sees Bullock running up the field. Bullock really takes the quarterback to the pitch. That was a great job by Bullock, but Frost should have kept the ball and ducked it up inside. I think he pitched the ball a little too quick that time, Drew.
Now Kansas turns away Nebraska. Gray in motion. Wagner gives to Van. Excuse me, it's Mitch Bowles for a few yards. Let's have a Dr. Pepper game break with Kevin Frazier. Kevin.
Drew, so many good quarterbacks in the Pac-10. One of them, Brock Hurd. He hits Jerome Pathan from 18 yards out. Washington rolling up in Corvallis, 24-10. Huskies still unbeaten in the Pac-10.
When's Washington get together with Washington State, Artie?
At the end of the year in the old Apple Bowl, but that's the team that Nebraska beat early in the year to make their mark to say, hey, we are back.
Wagner short drop and through the hands of Gray. And even on the quick drops, Wagner's ending up on his backside.
Well, what's happening, the defensive linemen from Nebraska make quick pass rush moves, and they come up the field very, very quickly. It's tough for Kansas to keep them out of there. But it's a good job that time by Wagner of getting rid of the ball, but he just keeps getting pounded and pounded and pounded. And Drew, when you're a quarterback, man, you don't like to get knocked down because every time you do, it's harder to get up.
You bet. The rain has really picked up now with 3:11 to go in the third quarter. 3rd down and 7. And let's see what John Lewis saw.
The foul, dead ball. False start by the offense. 5-yard penalty, remains 3rd down.
Down in the rain somewhere is our Greg Bell. Greg?
Well, I tell you what, the game is starting to take a hold of a nightmare, I guess, since Halloween is coming on. But one nightmare that's not there is the Nebraska fans. Not only is this team #1 in the country, but their team filled with their fans. As you can look at this stadium, is the #1 fans in the country.
They travel well, and it doesn't matter what the elements are. And I see a little snow mixed in with the rain.
That's why people love them to come to their bowl games, because they bring 30 to 40,000 people.
Wagner has a screen set up backside. Nowhere for Mitch Bowles to go. Ralph Brown made the play.
Well, the reason it doesn't work is that Kansas had a hard time getting out to get in front of the ball carrier, the receiver, number one. But number two, that speed of the Nebraska defense is just too much in the open field. They're athletic, they run fast, and they run well.
The foul, dead ball, personal foul on the defense, 15-yard penalty, automatic touchdown.
Charlie McBride, the defensive coordinator, won't like this.
No, especially at the end, because that's a heck of a play that time by Brown, but that's dumb at the end. Those are ignorant fouls that I always talk about. You don't mind physical fouls where you go up and you commit a pass interference when you're going for the football, but ignorant fouls get you beat. And I know Charlie McBride, the defensive coordinator, and Tom Osborne will not like that because, again, the trademark of this Nebraska football team has always been efficiency and smart play, both offensively, defensively, and individually.
We talked about it last week. They went without a penalty the entire game. A monsoon here in Lawrence. Jay Foreman on the blitz makes the tackle in the backfield. Mitch Bowles had nowhere to go. How many times have we said that tonight?
I know, and Foreman, he lines up on the line of scrimmage a great deal. They call that the up position. He's a very intelligent football player that, again, studies a lot of film and knows exactly what to expect when the offense breaks the huddle and gets into a formation. And, just talking to him, he said the one thing his dad taught him was how to focus, Drew, and how to be really focused on a job and to be a good football player. Not how to play the game, but how to focus.
And there was a penalty against Kansas. It was a hold. So even with the hold, Hardy, that play lost yardage. Joel Makovica says, get us the ball back. I want to get out on the field. He looks like a fullback.
He looks like a linebacker, too. He's getting everybody up. He doesn't want anybody sitting on the bench in the dry area. Get up there, get wet, and get ready.
Just like his brother Jeff, not recruited by any school, even small schools coming out of high school. Wagner lost the ball. And Kansas recovers it. That's the third time they've had a misconnection between Zach Wagner and Chris Enneking, the center. Justin Glasgow dropped his 315 pounds on the ball. They're going to need a new ball.
Yeah, but you see what happens. That is clearly a result of the ball being slippery. The ball went right through Weniger's hands and on the ground. He's got to get his hands a little bit closer together on that, or get a towel in there. Put a towel on the rear end of Enneking so he can dry his hands off, because that was his fault that time. The ball slipped right through his hands.
2nd and 20. Bowles spins out of Kelsey's arms, but he lost a couple of yards. There was, again, nowhere to run. Grant Wistrom right there. I mean, it's the old, let's meet at the quarterback.
People think that the Nebraska defensive line is really just a bunch of talented guys. They do a lot of things with these guys. Guys like Grant Wistrom and Jason Peter are intelligent football players that the defensive line coach and the defensive coordinator from Nebraska, Charlie McBride, can do a lot of different stunning and different alignments with these guys.
3rd and 20. They bring 7. And the pass down the middle, too tall for Sean McDermott. And Kansas will have to punt the football. Left tackle Dan Dercher having to block the All-American Grant Wistrom. Tough assignment for a guy who's had 5 practices at left tackle.
Yeah, and it's been tough on Kansas tonight, but that time, old Dercher sitting right in there, number 79, does a pretty good job against the All-American. Keeps his feet moving, keeps his pace, drives him past the quarterback. I'd say that's an outstanding job. I'd grade that one an A. If I was coaching that guy.
He did a great job, no question about that. Dercher, they're scolding themselves, the Kansas coaching staff. They wish they moved him over to the offensive side a long time ago. Chevin Wiggins from the 43. And he spins across midfield to the 47-yard line of Kansas. 21-0 Nebraska. College football Saturday rolls on with a Pac-10 battle as Saladin McCullough and the Oregon Ducks fly south to Los Angeles where they'll face the Southern Cal Trojans. That's coming up next on Fox Sports Net's College Football Saturday. Check your local listings. Here's the standings in the Pac-10. Washington State unbeaten. Washington unbeaten in conference play. And you can't forget about UCLA, and quietly Arizona State has had a nice year.
I think right now UCLA is the team that's ascending faster than anybody in the Pac-10.
Scott Frost ascends through the Kansas secondary for about 15 yards. Manolito Jones made the play. All 3 touchdowns for Nebraska in the first half.
Well, again, Kansas has come out. They've made some adjustments on defense. They haven't given up the big run. Nebraska does not seem as sharp as they were in the first half. And as a result, you have Kansas playing very well right now.
Jay Sims is checked in at the I-back behind Joel Makovica. Makovica gets the call, and he'll have a few yards. Brett McGraw caused a pile in the middle. And when you're a nose tackle, that's what you want to do.
Absolutely. And McGraw is the typical nose tackle, just like that guy is the typical blue-collar fullback. And, you know, from a walk-on status, he's going to maybe make some all-conference teams. But that guy right there is the heart and soul of this Kansas team. And we talked about him a couple times a week ago. He's a very interesting young man because he does a lot of different things.
Frost on the option. Late pitch out of bounds, fortunately for Scott. That may have been his first poor decision of the night. And it didn't hurt his club as it went out of bounds. That was the final snap of the third quarter. With 15 minutes to go, the Huskers' #1 ranking looks secure. The Huskers have been in control throughout as we begin the fourth quarter. Drew Goodman, Artie Gigantino, Greg Bell, and Coach is going to show us a little Nebraska terminology here on the blackboard.
One of the reasons Nebraska runs the ball so well is they grade perfect plays. Even if Nebraska runs for a 50-yard gain, if the backside tackle doesn't do exactly what he's supposed to do, they don't get a perfect play. So far this year, Nebraska has over 350 perfect plays by their offensive line.
88% of the plays they run, the offensive line does not have a missed assignment. That's extraordinary. Nebraska with the football, 3rd and 2 at the 39-yard line of Kansas, and before they can get it snapped, penalty flags.
Dead ball. Ball starts by the offense. 5-yard penalty. Remains 3rd down.
Nebraska 252 yards on the ground. They average 400. Kansas with 1 yard rushing. Keep in mind sacks in the college game are factored into your rushing total, something I wish they would change.
I agree with that.
But nobody will listen to you and I.
No.
But the point being, Nebraska defensively has held 3 opponents under 100 yards, actually under 50 yards rushing, and they're looking to do it for a 4th time tonight. Frost with room. First down yardage and more. And this will be a late hit in all probability against Kansas. Manolito Jones tripped him up, and I think Frost was already out of bounds. That'll be half the distance to the goal line.
Well, it ends up being an act of frustration right here because old Bobby Newcomb looks like he's in good shape there, gets a block, but Manolito pushes him and he's clearly out of bounds. That was a good call that time by the official, Drew, because he was out of bounds. But you got to know where you are as a defender before you hit a guy running the football. In that case, Scott Frost.
Nebraska will have a first and 10 inside the 15-yard line. They'll be at the 12, trying to garner their first points of the second half.
You know, coming into this game, Kansas has 59 penalties. That's too many.
Makovica the football, and he lunges to the 8-yard line. We're at Memorial Stadium in Lawrence, Kansas. The #1 ranked Huskers scored 3 first-half touchdowns, and they did some of them in the dark as the lights partially went out here due to a power outage outside of campus here in Lawrence. With Artie Gigantino and Greg Bell, I'm Drew Goodman, but the lights are back on. And for Nebraska, the bright lights of college football shining on them again. #1 in the land, and pretty easy schedule, if you will, the rest of the way. Temperature at 48 degrees. It's cold, and the wind really starting to blow. A winter storm warning. That bad weather we saw in Colorado, almost 3 feet of snow dumped on the Denver metropolitan area.
And in fact,
that's coming this direction.
And the game was canceled today, right? Colorado State against Tulsa was canceled, and they're going to play it tomorrow. And there you see Dewey Houston being helped off the field. And if Kansas loses him, that'll be a real big loss for this Kansas defense.
They moved the linebacker, Caston, into that position. Here's Frost on the option to the 3-yard line. And another flag. Caston made the tackle. 230-pound defensive end now. He was a linebacker most of the year. And in junior college ball, he was a nose tackle.
Yeah, a lot of the times.
Illegal use of the hands against the Huskers.
Well, I don't know. I didn't see that there. I thought it was going to be a face mask against Scott Frost.
The foul. Illegal block by the offense. 10-yard penalty. Remains second down.
So after the walk-off, Nebraska back at the 14-yard line.
You're going to see Billy Leggett right here turn and just hit a Kansas defender from behind. And that was a good call that time by the official. It was Tony Blevins that he hit from behind. And again, he was reaching to block him, but Blevins ran away from him. His hands ended up on his back.
Frost on the boot, plenty of room. Frost walks in, touchdown, Nebraska.
You know, Drew, that's all ball handling. What a wonderful fake that time by Scott Frost.
His second rushing touchdown of the night. His 9th of the season. And we talk so much about the pipeline blocking at the line of scrimmage. How about the guys downfield?
Well, one of the things they do a wonderful job of here at Nebraska is teach their wide receivers how to block downfield. That's why they're all big guys. You know, we were standing next to Jeff Lake yesterday. He's 6'4", he's 215 pounds because they're blockers downfield first. And that was a great example of it right there.
Chris Brown with another extra point. He is 33 of 33 this year in the PAT department.
And you know, you bring up a good point about the running game, Drew, and talking about blocking downfield. You know, everybody says it's only the offensive line. Well, a good running game means, number one, a good scheme. Number two, a good offensive line. But number three, and maybe more important, blocking fullbacks and blocking wide receivers that do the job for you downfield.
And it's got to be tough to recruit wideouts to Nebraska.
Yeah, it is, because they all want to come and catch passes. But here you're going to see Sheldon Jackson, number 88, but then you're going to see that guy come right back in from the outside. And I don't know who it is, but we'll give him credit here in a second.
That's Matt Davison, a true freshman. He's learning early.
He's learning real fast, but you know, for Tom Osborne, you have to do that in order to play for him. And you got to understand that you're a blocker and then a pass catcher. And that's why they get the great numbers in the running game. And they always have, and they always will.
Scott Frost tonight closing in on a season high in rushing. Unofficially, he has 119 this evening, his season high rushing. 123 against Akron. Mitch Bowles is back deep. Chris Brown will kick it deep. This one's going to take a couple of hops, and Bowles has to field the wet football. Oh, and he's destroyed right at the 19-yard line. Pretty solid pop downfield by Clint Finley. Tom Osborne talked about Scott Frost yesterday.
Well, I think Scott suffered from some very difficult comparisons. we were coming off a great year, a great football team, a great player in Frazier that was a 4-year starter. And then he goes into a situation a year ago where we didn't have quite as good an offense. There weren't as many good people around him. He was new to the situation, and obviously he wasn't going to play like a 4-year starter because he was in his first year. So I thought he did well under the circumstances, but I thought the comparisons were probably a little harsh and a little unfair.
Wagner with time, throws on the backside to Brian Gray. And a nice little play for Kansas. Well, Tom Osborne talks about Scott Frost, and he has now had 3 springs after transferring from Stanford with the Nebraska program. And I think an outsider looking in already thinks, oh, it's a pretty simple offense. They run option right, option left. Not true.
Not true, because the decision-making process involved in running an option offense is very difficult. Come to the line of scrimmage, decide which side you want to run to based on the number of defenders, but also deciding on the run, whether to pitch the ball or keep it. This guy has done a wonderful job for this Cornhusker offense this year.
Really has taken a while to master that offense, and it does take a while.
Mitch Bowles.
Decent game for Mitch Bowles. Give him 4. Eric Johnson the tackle. We go to Los Angeles. A Dr. Pepper game break with Kevin Frazier. Kev?
Drew Washington beginning to pull away in Corvallis, and maybe Artie can explain how a receiver gets that wide open. Jawarren Hooker, the 45-yard touchdown from Brock Huron. 38-10. The Huskies in control.
Well, one of 2 things happened. Either it was a blown coverage or he ran right by somebody. But I know some coach somewhere out there right now is not a happy camper about something like that happening.
Mitch Bowles puts it on the ground. Ball still loose, and Nebraska has the football. Erwin Sweeney grabbed it. Jason Peter knocked it out.
Now you're going to start seeing here, Drew, the strength of Nebraska really taking over. You know, Nebraska can only travel 66 players, so they got to keep their first and second team in the game here, Drew. They can't put the third and fourth and fifth teams on in the game like they can when they're at home. So you're going to see all their top flight players play the rest of the game here.
You know, Artie, with the weather the way it is, it's amazing. Now it's the first turnover by Kansas tonight.
I know, it is. It really has been. They've done a great job, both teams, of holding on to the football.
Now, speaking of first string, Frost and Amon Green still in there. And Scott Frost trying to avoid Steve Bratton put his knee down. So give Steve Bratton a sack. And you know what? Put a big Jayhawk on the side of Steve Bratton's helmet, because he's earned one tonight.
Absolutely. And you're going to see Frost here just go down on a knee. It looks like he starts to fall, and boom, he slips. He slips, and his knee goes down. And that's a good job by the official. Now, Bratton still might have gotten a sack, though, Drew, even if he didn't slip there. But that's what happened. He slipped on this surface, and Bratton was Johnny on the spot to be right there and secure it.
A loss of 6, 2nd and 16. The delay, and Amon Green are running over people all the way to the 35-yard line. He got 11. Let's get an injury update from Greg Bell. Greg?
Well, a few plays ago, Octavius McFarland left the game for Nebraska. He has a pinched nerve, and he won't return unless they need him. That's what I was told by the trainers. Dewey Houston, on the other hand, has a hip flexor, and basically they said they're going to let it die down, let the soreness leave, and he should be coming back in shortly.
And that soreness will return tomorrow morning, big time.
That's the worst time, because injuries don't settle in until 12 to 15 hours after they occur.
Frost, Green, juggling, pick it up on a hop, knock it out of bounds. Did he get a first down? He looked like a shortstop ready to be sent down from the big leagues to AAA.
And you see him right there. I thought that was a pretty good pitch. It looked like the ball went right through his hands because it's gotten slippery. Frost has done a wonderful job all year pitching the ball, and that is a good pitch. But credit the weather, or give the weather the blame, because that ball slipped out of his hands, not once, Drew, but twice. Maybe he ought to just take those gloves off. Isn't it harder to catch with gloves on?
It would seem that way to me. All fairness to Amon Green, you're right. It is not easy to grab the football, and Amon Green doesn't put it on the ground frequently.
Yeah, get those babies off, you know, but we shouldn't coach him. He's done well without our coaching.
Yeah, he doesn't need our help. 4th down and short. And it'll be a Nebraska first down. Driving tacklers into the secondary. Tony Blevins finally wrapped up Amon Green. He can run outside and he can run inside.
Yeah, and this is a new formation that Nebraska's been using the last couple of weeks. It's called the stack guy, where they put 2 fullbacks in the game and they put Amon Green as the 3rd back there. So you end up having 2 fullbacks as lead blockers and then the I-back as the 3rd guy.
There it is again. They run the load option. They attack the corner, and Scott Frost picks up 9 yards.
And see, the beauty of it, Drew, is you get an extra blocker with the extra fullback in the backfield. Well, here's the all-timer, man. Run to win, 158-5 when Tom Osborne's teams rush for 300 yards or more. That's a great statistic. And so far today, they've rushed for 300 yards or more. So it looks like they're going to just add to that stat a little bit, Drew.
And they average 400. They're 81-0 under Dr. Tom when they run for 400. That's just remarkable stuff. Makovica to the 11-yard line. They're starting to wear that Kansas defense down. Another first down for the Huskers. Steve Bratton gets up last again for the Jayhawks.
Well, you know what, Drew? You got to love this. This is really football here. In the rain, tough running team, big fullbacks running up inside, lowering their shoulders, making tacklers miss them. Boy, you got to love this stuff. But I'm glad we're inside because it's a little cold and damp outside.
See, they have helmets on. You know, our crews out there fighting the elements, they don't have equipment on. We got to give them an extra paycheck, Artie. You in charge of that?
Yes, they're tough guys there.
Frost looks toward the end zone. It's a duck and a penalty flag in the area of interference. Sheldon Jackson was the intended receiver, but that wasn't catchable.
It looked like he got bumped, and you might see a discussion here by the officials. Well, they called it.
Interference on Kansas. Terry Allen saying, doesn't the ball have to be?
Ball is spotted at the 2-yard line. First down.
Wondering if it has to be catchable.
Well, here's the bump, and the ball is in the air, and you know what? I think that's a good call by the official. I thought that was the right call that time by the official. There clearly was a bump. And you're going to see a nice example here of poise by Scott Frost. And that could have been a late hit also. And he does a nice job of waiting.
First and goal at the 2. Amon Green does it on his own. He was hit at the 3-yard line. He drove Hanson Caston right into the end zone backwards. Well, Amon Green has put on about 20 pounds in the last 2 years. He's up to 215 on about a 5'11.5" frame, and you saw the power there.
Well, he's a complete back. He's got power, he's got balance, he's got vision. And the thing that Frankie Solich, the running back coach, teaches here at Nebraska, Drew, is aggressive running. Just an example right there of don't stop, even when you're hit. Keep going, keep churning, keep those legs moving, and get an extra yard.
Chris Brown living right. He grazed the left upright, and it goes through. 35-0. The folks prepared early for Halloween. Huskers rolling. 9:42 to go in the 4th quarter. Nebraska shutting out Kansas, trying to produce 2 consecutive shutouts. Last week, they knocked off Texas Tech 29-0. Drew Goodman, Artie Gigantino, Greg Bell from a rainy, cold Lawrence, Kansas. And Artie, you know, you've been kind of subdued tonight.
Well, you know, it's the weather. When it's cold out, I have to, you know, I don't move around as much.
That one goes through the end zone. Let's take a look again at Amon Green's 2-yard touchdown run.
Well, as I was talking about, the violent running. He gets hit at the line of scrimmage there, but he keeps his feet moving. He keeps turning and twisting and finds the end zone. And that is just coaching, but it's also determination by that young guy right there of wanting to get into the end zone and running aggressively and violently, Drew.
I'd say that's an accurate description, a violent run.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want your running back to do, to cover the football and attack the tackler.
Julius Bruce has stepped into the backfield next to Greg Davis. And Bruce gets the call. And nowhere to run except into the arms of number 1, Eric Johnson, the junior from Phoenix, who is a cousin of Jamel Holloway. Talk about the option. He has to be one of the 3 or 4 best option quarterbacks I ever saw.
Banning High School out in Los Angeles, California. Absolutely. Went to the University of Oklahoma. When I was at USC, to tell you how smart we were, we recruited him as a safety. And he kind of believed us. But he said, hey, my future is not at safety. I know you guys aren't going to let me play quarterback. I'm going to go to Oklahoma and run the option, which is what he did.
You know what? It was a pretty good decision.
Yeah, that was the right place for him to go. Even though I don't like losing recruits.
2nd and 10 for Wagner. Little waggle out in the flat to Gray. And he pays for the hit. In fact, he didn't hold on to the football. It's incomplete. Jerome Peterson, Eric Johnson combined to put the leather to Brian Gray.
Well, you know, there's a bootleg pass that time, and Gray gets out. And he used to be a quarterback, and he wishes now he was probably still a quarterback because he really gets leveled on this. But he never had control of the football.
And there was also a flag down.
Is this the Coneheads right here? What is that?
That is a little different.
The rain is making the corn grow on top of their heads. How's that, Drew?
Our director, Kenny Fouts, fed us that line. I was smart enough to leave it alone, but you went with it.
I do what I'm told.
Yes, and that's a smart policy.
The foul is holding by the offense. Half the distance. Replay 2nd down.
You know, Drew, I'm surprised tonight that Kansas hasn't been called for holding more because they're kind of outmatched the offensive line against Nebraska's defensive line. And when that happens, the tendency is to usually hold. But they haven't been flagged for holding much tonight.
No, but Artie, right now they are 2nd and 23 going against 11 black shirts and a 25-mile-an-hour wind. Not to mention the rain. Julius Bruce runs into Jay Foreman. Coaches talk about swarming to the football, Artie. They had about 6-7 players around Julius Bruce.
That was the perfect example of swarming the ball. And swarming means all the defensive guys run as fast as you can until the whistle blows to the ball carrier. And you chart swarming, you grade swarming, because to me, that is the heart and soul of your defense. And you know what? To be a great defense, that's what you have to do.
See, Artie, we're getting you jumping around a little bit now. You're starting to get warmed up. Maybe we'll play 2 today. Straight ahead, Bruce, maybe 1.5 yards. Well, the wind blowing and all that rain on the glass in front of us, feel like a fish in a tank.
And you know what? And that guy right there, number 1, Eric Johnson, he's a real swarmer. And he's an example of what you talked about so accurately before of Nebraska taking safeties and making them outside linebackers to increase the speed at the linebacker position. And he's a wonderful example of that.
Chevin Wiggins back deep. Dean Royal will punt it out of his own end zone. 35-0 Nebraska. Takes a few hops. Wiggins runs toward it and then thinks better of picking it up. And punt rolls dead at the 50-yard line. A punt of 46 yards, a net of 46. Back in a moment. 7:05 to go in the 4th quarter. Nebraska takes over at midfield. Frankie London is the new quarterback for Dr. Tom Osborne. And he hands off to Jay Sims, who picks up about 7 yards. Patrick Brown made the tackle. There's Frankie London. He's a sophomore from Lake Charles, Louisiana. And he was a high school All-American, widely recruited. He's produced 147 yards on the ground this year and better than 6 yards a crack. So there's not a huge drop-off when Frankie London comes in.
The only thing that he's different than Scott Frost is the size. You know, you look at Scott Frost, you say he's a linebacker playing quarterback. Frankie is not. He's a running quarterback that I think is just a wonderful player.
Strong left formation. That's where they run. London keeps it. Frankie to the 34-yard line.
you know, he gives you a little bit more of a jitterbug step than Scott Frost. And, you know, he can really go. And watching him in practice, you're just amazed at how fast he is. Here he turns completely around. He has no doubt that he's going to keep the ball, makes a little move, and gets some positive yardage. The negative is he's about 180, a little bit lighter, but he's fast, Drew.
Artie, we were watching him yesterday in practice. He has a very live arm.
Absolutely. We saw him throw 55 yards just standing still.
Give it to Billy Legate. And on the quick trap, Legate gets about 6 yards. Jason Thorin tripped him up. Patrick Brown jumped on his back. Another non-11-man high school football player. Legate's from Clearwater, Nebraska.
Drew, let me ask you, why does he have charcoal on his cheeks? To keep the sun out of his eyes? I mean, isn't that why you do that? Why would a guy do that here in the snow and the rain?
Hey.
Are the lights that bright?
Do you know what? You know this as a coach. Routine.
Yeah, superstition and routine, absolutely.
Jay Sims again. And nowhere to run. Patrick Brown closed it down pretty well as he cut back. Also Tony Blevins in there. Well, you know what may have been the biggest play of this game early? Not that Nebraska wouldn't be comfortably ahead. It was 7-0 Nebraska, and they were forced to punt by Kansas midway of the first quarter. Here's Jesse Cush, and Jason Harris blocks the punt. Look at Joel Makovica. He picks it up on the courtesy room service hop, and he rumbles for about 40 yards for a first down.
And just a backbreaker that time against Kansas, because you make a big play and it turns into a negative for you.
London running the option. And Jason Thorin grabs London, but he doesn't want to go down.
By Jason Thorin.
And you know, that's good coaching by Tom Osborne here of not pitching the football because it's wet. The chances of fumbles are greater. He keeps the ball. And, you know, you're going to see some of the other players play. And Billy Legate right now is in at fullback. And, you know, he's another guy. He's an 8-man high school football product that was a walk-on that got a scholarship, just like the guy in front of him right here, Joel Makovica.
Well, it's fourth down and 4 yards to go. Clock moving inside 4:05 to play. Nebraska shutting out Kansas 35-0. Correll Buckhalter has come in as the I-back. Steve Bratton in London's face, and London had to throw short.
Incomplete.
Steve Bratton, you sound like a broken record, but he has played well. He has nothing to be ashamed about. They're trying to hook up with Vershawn Jackson. So on the change of downs, change of possession as well. 3:51 to play. Nebraska led 21-0 at halftime.
And you know, you're talking about Bratton. He's a guy a couple weeks ago lost 12 pounds because he had some infection in his stomach. But he seems to have come back perfectly and, like you said, just playing great tonight.
Offset eye, Julius Bruce. Greg Davis in the backfield. Bruce. Oh, man. He runs right into Travis Toline, junior from Wahoo, Nebraska. They just keep lining them up.
Well, the one thing they do at Nebraska, they play a lot of players between 21 and 23 each game. So when the, quote, second teamers have to come in and play, they've got some game experience. And I think that's a great thing to do if you have the depth and the talent to do it, Drew.
And Nebraska certainly does.
Nebraska certainly does.
Always talk about their walk-on program. They have the best walk-on program in college football. Bruce gets open. Julius Bruce run out of bounds. Flip side of the 50. Maybe the best gain of the day offensively for Kansas. They have been few and far between for the Jayhawks.
You know, the other day at practice, I was standing next to Dave Gillespie, the director of football operations from Kansas, who, by the way, was a tailback for Tom Osborne in the mid-70s. And I said, who is that guy, number 35? He's a great-looking prospect. And he said, it's Julius Bruce. But what's happened to Julius, he's kind of got caught in between, and right there he steps out of bounds. But he got caught in between the coaching change here, and the coaches decided to go with Van and Wimbush and Bowles before him. He's a wonderful-looking prospect.
Bruce gets the call again, puts his head down for a few yards, and we take a look at our Burger King game summary. Nebraska, 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 from Makovica, 1 from Frost. That was in the first half. In the second half, Amon Green got in the end zone. Total offense, 381 for Nebraska. They're usually over 500. Kansas, if this is possible, they've actually done a decent job defensively, Artie.
Yes, they have. I thought they did a good job, or have done a good job of controlling Nebraska's offense to a degree. I don't think you could ask for more from the Kansas defense team.
Wagner under pressure. Wide open is Blevins, and he's out of bounds. Excuse me, it's Tremaine Fulton. I thought they snuck Tony Blevins into the offensive huddle, and they've done that before. Tremaine Fulton was all alone. Problem is, he was out of bounds when he caught the football.
Well, when it goes bad, and he is out of bounds. The ball is thrown too far over there, and he takes him out of bounds. But it was, again, the right idea by Wagner, trying to go up the field. Fulton's the guy that they want to have emerge here, Drew, as a star wide receiver, and why not get him some practice here in a situation like this?
Well, here's a high school All-American down the road in Topeka, and he's a true freshman. Third down and 7. Julius Bruce will get about a yard. That's all. 35-0 Nebraska here. A reminder, coming up next, we'll send you out to the Coliseum in Los Angeles, where we believe the weather's a little better.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a lot of heat in Los Angeles right now on John Robinson at USC. There's a lot of dissatisfaction with what's going on in the USC football program, and it will be interesting, number one, to see how they end up this year, but number two, to see what Mike Garrett, the athletic director, does with John Robinson, whether to keep him or whether to fire him.
Your former boss.
Yeah, and he's a great coach. He's done a good job there, but times have changed in college football right now. It's not the same when you come back the second time.
Dean Royal is going to punt the football.
And we'll go to break here, Drew.
And this is over Shevin Wiggins' head, and it'll roll into the end zone. It'll be a touchback. They're unable to down it at the 1-yard line. A punt of 57 yards. 1:16 left in Lawrence, Nebraska, in a no-doubter. Plenty of Husker fans, plenty happy, and they'll enjoy the trip back to Lincoln. 35-0, they lead Kansas. They'll go to 7-0, and undoubtedly remain the #1 team in the nation. Frankie London remains at quarterback for the final buck 16. This is Alexander keeping his feet for a couple of moments. Dan Alexander, a redshirt freshman. He goes 250 pounds at the I-back. And Tim Bowers, another freshman, made the tackle for Kansas.
And Drew, they should be the #1 team in the nation. I think this team is playing as good as anyone in the country right now, offensively, defensively, and special teams. And until they lose, and they could go the whole way without losing, I think they should remain #1.
Won't get an argument from me. Frankie London on the keeper. He's out of bounds at the 40-yard line. Nebraska continues to rush on. The executive producers of Fox Sports Net are Arthur Smith and Bill Borson. The coordinating producer of College Football Saturday is Roy Hamilton. Tonight's game has been produced by Mike Helling, directed by Ken Fouts, and the head of field operations is Andrea Jenkins. And again, kudos not only to all of those folks, they do a great job every week, but also to our folks standing outside holding parabolic microphones and cameras and that sort of thing out in the elements. It is nasty here in Lawrence.
And Frank and the crew have done just a great job of keeping us warm and keeping us dry up here.
Frank Phillips?
Big Frank, he's the best.
The best.
I love that guy. I think he is the best. Got great imagination in these booths. Constructing things for us.
He has done a marvelous job again. That guy is going to take 6 days for him to warm up.
And it's going to take that guy about 6 days, I think, to get back to even keel, because going into this game, he was concerned about the mental state, Drew, of his football team. And, I noticed his daughter was down a little bit, too, when we were talking to him. So he's got to bounce back also.
Should be the final snap of the game. It will be. Willie Miller with the carry, and and Nebraska wins it 35-0. Another impressive performance for the Huskers. Next up, they'll have Oklahoma. Terry Allen and his club will have Iowa State right here next week.
And you know, that will be a chance for Kansas to get back on the winning track against Iowa State. But going back to Nebraska, I think they've got clear sailing the whole way.
They're in good shape. Once again, the final score 35-0 in Lawrence for the Huskers. The Huskers 7-0. That'll do it from Lawrence. For Greg Bell, Artie Gigantino, I'm Drew Goodman. Let's get it to Kevin Frazier in Los Angeles.